Okay, now the first thing we have to do is click on every single bookshelf. Where we're going to read all about books. Natural selection, Mother Nature. Geology. And talking about the Cambrian explosion. Micrographia. Mind swap. Yeah, I want my tail back. Abdul al-Hazred. One of the sources in making the Necronomicon. Yeah, gross on both their counts. Teletemporation and telepathy. Having the ability to travel through time. One says the Golden Rabbit and the Moon. And what is the moon stuff about? It's talking about the Judas tree that's said to grow on the moon, according to Chinese legend. Rabbits on the moon. Energy theory. Didn't understand the title. And we have a set of titles with a set of books with weird freaking titles on them. And what if we switch them around? So, let's see. These actually can spell something out, reading left to right once you get them in the right order. In this case, where we get open here, find bulb. And indeed, we now have a light bulb. A brand spanking new light bulb. That's an easy puzzle. Very easy. An overview of conformal field theory. An invariant quantum field where conformal transformation can take place. Supersymmetric string theory in 10-dimensional space-time. property values in space. Cosmic inflation, which 7 obviously misread. Nothing here whatsoever. General relativity. A note on the table. Lights to the books is all it says. And books do kind of spend their lives locked in darkness. We are going to go over here now. Okay, that only turns I have turns, so black hole hypothesis, gamma ray astrophysics. Bookshelf has astronomy as a theme. Hellenism. Permian creatures. Cultural heritage of Rome. History of Buddhism. History of medieval period. Yeah, it'd be kind of difficult. A kid's book here, a story about Native Americans. Just a little bit. A random book in here is kind of suspicious. Cowboys and Indians. Native Americans. And it's a pop-up book with some letters popping out of it. L, R, and K. And then Greek mythology. Okay, yep, that is what we've already seen. Principles of monkey behavior. A book perfect for 7. Correlation of muscle, bone density, and bone strength. Possibly. Dissection. Function of the human brain. And we found another picture book. Fundamentals of baseball. With the word head in it. Lost human functions. Maybe. The Funyorinpas of Baseball. There we go. There's a new book for us. Anatomy, equilibrium, regeneration of internal organs. Ancient gladiators. Assembly line techniques. Foundations of GNA and genetic engineering. Communication and computer science. Overview of photochemistry. And by moving those books, we found a second light bulb. Just make sure I've clicked on all these. I'm pretty sure I have. Section Atlas. More books on evolution and stuff. Transition of extinct species. Books about evolutionary theory. Okay, I know I need at least one more book. Just want to make completely sure I'm not just missing it out here. Pretty sure I need to go to the downstairs area. Algebraic number theory. Pythagorean theorem. Let's ignore the completely different set there for a second. Indian mathematics. Raymond hypothesis. I forgot about this conversation. Ooh boy. You don't say. Origin of Japanese folklore. And we finally found the third freaking picture book. Tales of Old Japan. And more letters popping up. Let's see. Yeah, glass inlay. 6 books. Seems kind of weird. Something on the bottom. We have Astronomy 6, Astronomy 3, Astronomy 2, Astronomy 4, Astronomy 1, and Astronomy 5. And we happen to need a 6-digit code. And looky. Come on. And now here. Yeah, light bulb. We've got lights here, or light lamps with, old bulbs in them. So we now have a big open light there. Small enclosure with 9 sides. Didn't exactly have to solve the puzzle here, other than knowing what to do with the books and the light bulbs. So, we now have Shelled Rake-5. And one thing we really haven't looked at. Dadkind. The hell is it? A German mathematician. Owen. Leibniz. Yeah, if Snake doesn't know, we aren't going to know. And we have Sheldrake. Okay, what am I missing? Oh, I know. I actually have to click
Sheldrake
the
5?
thing.
I think I saw the rest of this collection somewhere.
Yeah, I think it was somewhere around here.
Yeah, on that bookshelf we just looked at. Try to keep up, guys.
Let's go take a look.
Okay.
Seven and Clover walked off, leaving Junpei and Snake behind.
Sheldrake.
Have you heard of him? Sheldrake, I mean.
Junpei grinned.
Yeah, Lotus told me about him.
There's a British biochemist named Sheldrake. He has a rather interesting theory. Morphogenetic fields, which relies on the theory of morphic resonance.
Really? From Lotus, huh?
Well, Clover also said something to me about that stuff.
She did?
Yeah, what was it?
The ability to access a morphogenetic field is affected by a couple of things. The first is epiphany, and the other is danger.
That girl. I told her not to tell anyone.
You did? Why?
Well...
Junpei's eyes narrowed.
Look, man, I didn't push it because we're in a hurry, but I'm kind of sick of this. How about you just tell me, okay?
Tell you what?
Don't give me that. About the experiment.
Snake's shoulders slumped and he shook his head slowly.
Ugh.
He'd finally given up.
Very well, fine. I'll tell you everything. But not here. Let's move to the top floor.
Junpei nodded. With that, they climbed the stairs to the top floor. Snake was silent for a moment after they arrived, then finally crossed his arms and spoke.
I suppose I might as well start by telling you why I kept quiet, and why I made sure Clover did as well. To be honest, the explanation is quite simple. Zero told me not to. I had little choice. He didn't walk up and tell me, of course. He gave me a message engraved on a card.
Snake reached into his sleeve and pulled out a small, stiff piece of paper.
That's a Braille card. It looks just like the one you showed us earlier. So you had 2 cards.
No, only one.
Huh? What do you mean? I thought that card just had some rules for the nonary game on it.
Yes, it did. And those were the rules I read you. However, they were not the only thing on the card. There was something I didn't read. Well, perhaps I should say, there was something I couldn't read.
And that was?
Tell no one of the events that took place 9 years ago. Tell, and I activate your sister's detonator. It's a threat on our lives.
Oh. Well,
Snake nodded.
Well, what about Clover? Did she get a message from Zero too?
I don't believe she did. But doesn't it strike you as strange that Zero would shut my mouth, but not hers?
Yeah.
To be on the safe side, however, I told her it was best not to tell anyone. Still, apparently she told you. That girl.
What's wrong with her telling me? I figured some stuff out with the things she told me. I mean, it looks like the whole activate her detonator thing was just a bluff. She's prancing around downstairs happy as a clam now that you're back.
Snake glanced down at Clover and Seven, examining one of the bookshelves.
That's very true. I've decided I can trust you.
Poor decision.
I've decided to tell you the truth. The chance that Santa is Zero is very high. I feel I can assume Santa doesn't have the time to observe us at the moment. And at any rate, even if he were, I very much doubt he would kill us.
Why?
Clover told me about the 4-leaf clover, about the words. If he knew about that, then he was in my group during the first experiment. I'm sure of it. He wouldn't kill us. No matter what the situation was.
Snake paused and cocked his head as though he was listening to something very far away. His face looked dark, as though something was weighing on him.
Hey, Snake?
Junpei wasn't quite sure what to say. Snake turned and looked at him.
Yes, I know. You want to know what happened during the experiment.
Yeah.
How much do you know?
Clover told me about...
I see. The morphogenetic field in the experiments 9 years prior. How the experiments had taken place simultaneously at 2 locations, one being the ship and the other being a building in Nevada. And the girl that died during the experiment. She told you all that, did she?
Snake looked down. His face was tight. A slight tremor shook his body, and he tried to hide it. He was putting on a good front, but even Junpei could tell that he was holding back something deep and powerful. He made as if to brush something from his face, and looked up at Junpei.
At any rate, I now know how much you've learned. All that remains for us to determine
is who did this and why, right?
Yes.
Can you tell me what happened?
Yes.
Snake nodded slowly.
The people who organized the initial experiment were from a company called Cradle Pharmaceuticals. There were 4 of them running the show. Gentaro Hongo, Nagisa Nijisaki, Teruaki Kubota, Kagechika Musashido. Hongo was the CEO of Cradle Pharmaceuticals. Nijisaki was his right-hand man and did the lion's share of the planning. Kubota led the company's research and development division. Musashido was their majority stockholder. It was these 4 people who planned the initial experiment. Let me simplify it for you. Hongo designed it, and Nijisaki put it all together. Kubota developed the technology required, and Musashido provided the cash.
So it's Hongo, Nijisaki, Kubota, Musashido...
Remember these names. Or not. Junpei couldn't shake the sense that he'd heard those 4 names somewhere before.
Of course, more than 4 people were required to conduct an experiment of this scale. To that end, they organized a top-secret team to assist them with their research.
Guess who 2 of these guys are feeling?
All in all, they gathered 10 people or so. Those 10 completed their team, and they were able to begin the project. They named it the Nonori Project. The purpose of the experiment was to research the prospect of controlling a human mind through sheer will. The vessel, I suppose you could say, for this control was the morphogenetic field. Why did the glycerin suddenly begin to crystallize? Why did the crystal structure of EDT undergo a sudden change? Why did the rats improve their puzzle-solving skills with each generation? Experiments with humans produced the same results. The more people who knew the answer to a question, the more there were who could answer correctly without having seen the problem before. Why is that? How could it happen? The answer is that the shape of the answer has been stored in a field invisible to the naked eye. And through that field, the resonant event transmits information related to that answer. That's essentially the idea behind morphogenetic fields.
But that's just a theory.
Can't bring yourself to believe it?
Yeah,
Let's say someone killed another person because the devil told them to do it. Whether the devil exists or not has no relevance to the murder. They believe the devil exists. Whether or not he does is immaterial.
It kind of does sound like homeopathy. Just a little bit that the water retains memories. Kinda, yeah. I think homeopathy is based in this same general idea.
So what matters here is that Hongo believed in the morphogenetic field.
That's right.
Snake nodded.
But I still don't get it. You said they wanted to figure out how to control people, right? That is what you were saying.
Yes.
So how are they going to do that with a morphogenetic field?
I'll keep it simple. Let's suppose 10,000 people have solved a certain problem. The chance of you knowing that answer, even if no one has told you, will go up. Let's have another example, shall we?
I would just say Google it, because I would have to Google it to explain it in detail. But yeah, it's like, basically, if you drink a lot of water, it will cure diseases because the water can remember how to cure them. And it's very convoluted and based in some very, very pseudoscience. Much like this game.
Say 1 million people were to do a handstand right now. Tomorrow, the chances of you doing a handstand would be higher, even if you had heard nothing of this hypothetical mass handstanding. Mankind's thought process and actions are all part of a resonant event. All of the resonant events encoded in the fields are projected onto you. Of course, this assumes you believe in this theory. Do you follow so far?
Yeah.
Now, if there was a person who had the same effect as those millions of people, what would happen? If that one person were to do a handstand, other people would find themselves wanting to do handstands as well. Can you imagine what a person with powers like that would be able to do?
Well, yes, if you actually try to make this fit into real life, yeah, this game is not going to measure up. But, in the world presented in the game, everything fits.
Come on, there's no way.
I'm not done. Imagine another scenario. Imagine another person. This is an ordinary person. Let's say he does a handstand. What if there was someone who could grab the resonant event he created by doing that and use it to make other people do handstands? What would happen then? A person who has the power to write to the field, and someone who can read from the same. You could think of them as the writer and the reader, or the transmitter and the receiver. What would the world be like if there were people with abilities like these?
Junpei thought about it for a moment.
So the transmitter's resonant event can be transmitted through the field and sent to the receiver. And then the transmitter can control the receiver however they wish. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes. Close enough, at least.
Come on, that's just crazy.
Well, if you want to prove that, then you'll have to test it first. At least, that was how they thought. That was why they decided to do their experiment. That was how the Nonary project began.
Snake suddenly looked very serious.
By the way, Junpei, have you ever heard of the Gansfeld experiment?
Junpei cleared his throat and tried to act calm.
Yeah, that was an experiment in telepathy, right? You place a pair of subjects in separate rooms. Then you show one a picture and ask the other what they see.
Interesting. I'm impressed. Yes, that is exactly correct.
So, why did you bring up the Gansfeld experiment?
It was used to screen subjects for the Nonary Project. The hospital in a remote town was affiliated with Cradle Pharmaceuticals. Hongo used it to conduct experiments on visiting children in secret. Some of them, he found, had potential. He began to gather children that showed promise. Children that seemed as though they might be able to access the field. Of course, none of them volunteered. They were kidnapped.
His face barely moved as he spoke.
There were 9 pairs of siblings taken, for 18 children total. For reasons that were not fully understood at the time, each pair had 1 transmitter and 1 receiver. They were split perfectly. As such, the 18 children were split into 2 groups of 9. The children who were put into Group Q were the ones who excelled at transmitting. They were transferred to the mock experiment building known as Building Q in the Nevada desert. The children who excelled at receiving were put in Group A. Group A was then placed on the former hospital ship Gigantic. From the experiments he had conducted so far, Hongo had learned the following.
Remember, we are talking about kids that are 9 and 10.
There are 2 things that can increase one's resonance with the fields. The first is epiphany. The other is danger. Have you ever been faced with an especially difficult problem and thought about it very long and very hard until finally an answer suddenly appeared in your mind? It may seem obvious to say so, but that is what is meant by epiphany.
I mean, we're talking about kids that are 9, 10, roughly that age. Maybe up to 13, 14, etc. To get them into an experiment like this, you have to, convince the parents to let them go. I don't think they were going to sell too many parents. Oh, we're going to put them on a ship that sinks. Unless they can access some mysterious field that, no one can see to save themselves. So, will you sign your kid over for that?
The information obtained through that epiphany can be easily transmitted through the fields, where it can be easily interpreted. Adding danger to that equation allows for even easier field access. That's where Hongo came in.
Yeah, and they leave that part out. They get sued to oblivion when the kids come back, one of them dead.
They set up a number of puzzles across the Gigantic. The participants had to solve each one before they could move to the next room. Of course, he hadn't forgotten to include danger. He had detonated a bomb on the hull of the Gigantic. The children in Group A were forced to play the Nonary game as the ship sunk. By forcing the children into a life-or-death situation, Hongo hoped to increase the likelihood of their tapping into the fields. The children from Group Q, on the other hand, were confined to the mock experiment building, Building Q. Building Q duplicated the interior and puzzles of the Gigantic exactly. Every detail was exactly the same. Hongo explained the situation to the children in Group Q. Solve the puzzles you find throughout the rooms. When you have the answers, transmit that information to the children in Group A. If you succeed, they will be able to solve the puzzles and escape. But if you fail, then the Gigantic will sink, and your brothers and sisters will drown. Those were his orders. Do you know why the astronauts of Apollo 13 were able to return to Earth safely? It was because NASA had access to a replica of the Apollo 13 capsule. All of the equipment, the instruments, everything. All of it identical. Everything was just like the real Apollo 13.
How would they access the field? Who knows? It's just something they can do. I don't know if there's a special method to it or what, but it's just something they have the ability to do.
NASA was able to replicate the situation the astronauts found themselves in. By putting themselves in the same situation, they attempted to solve the problems the astronauts were dealing with. Once they found solutions, they reported their findings to the men aboard the actual capsule. That was how they were able to return safely. It was the same with the Gigantic and Building Q. The children from Group Q had to use the power of Epiphany to solve the puzzles they found and transmit what they learned through the fields. The children in Group A, however, they had to access the fields to learn how they might advance to the next stage. That is the simplest explanation I can manage.
Snake sounded defeated. His half-hearted attempt at derision only served to show how much of the story had affected him.
Huh.
Just as Junpei was about to speak,
Hey, Junpei, Snake! How much longer are you two gonna sit around on those bony asses? Get down here already!
Seven's voice echoed up from below. Snake took a deep breath and blinked rapidly, as if just waking up from a long nap.
He's right. Let's go, shall we? We don't have much time. We need to get out of here, and soon.
Snake headed for the stairs, but Junpei put out an arm to stop him.
Hold it.
Well, I would assume that Group Q had access to clues and such that Group A did not.
There's one more thing I want to ask you.
Hmm?
Are you sure that there were 18 kids?
Why?
Well, I thought it was only 16.
Oh, yes. That was what they said on the news, wasn't it? Yes, I have no doubt that 18 children were abducted and used in Hongo's experiment. After all, you couldn't exactly play a nonary game with any less, could you?
Well, yeah, but are you saying that the news got it wrong?
Yes, I am. There were 2 more children. However, they had no relatives that I'm aware of. I imagine no one filed a police report when they went missing. They were brother and sister, like Clover and I. The brother's name was Aoi. The sister's name was... Her name was...
Snake couldn't seem to bring himself to continue. It looked as if what he was about to say brought him great pain.
Her name was Akane. That was the girl who died.
Junpei felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. His vision went blurry, and his head felt light.
Akane Kurashiki died? 9 years ago? Then, who is June? No. That's impossible. It can't be true. Akane isn't that uncommon of a name. If Snake had known her last name, that's a different matter entirely. So they share a name. A lot of other people do too. It doesn't mean anything. It was someone else. Of course it was. It has to be.
Junpei shook his head hard and pulled himself back to reality.
Is something wrong, Junpei? Your breathing sounds strange.
Then Snake had noticed. Junpei cleared his throat and tried to act calm.
Oh, no, it's nothing. I'm fine. Let's get back down there, all right?
Snake raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. He headed down the stairs, Junpei bringing up the rear.
I couldn't do it. Why didn't I ask? What's her last name? I just couldn't get the words to come out.
With every step he took, the cold, hard sound of feet against metal dug at his heart. So, now that we've witnessed that, the big red button. A jolly candy-like button. I'm pressing. What was that noise? Keyboard in front of numbers. "13, 14, 10, and 13. All Roman numerals. And the keyboard doesn't have any number keys whatsoever. So this puzzle, you had 13, 14, 10, and 13. And we've recently gone through a room where we transposed basically numbers into letters. And letters into numbers, you know, that type of thing. Where A equaled 10, B equaled 11, C equaled 12, D equaled 13, E equaled 14. So, using that, 13, 14, 10, and 13. And yeah, the password actually being dead kind of sounds a little ominous. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. I didn't. I never do what the narrator says. The other door's locked anyway. The door opened, and Junpei and the others leapt through it.
Alright, this is the next.
I can come up with a few more 4-letter words. Don't worry. Just as Seven was about to finish his sentence, their attention was drawn to the clang of metal on metal ringing out behind them. Work with me.
The door!
They spun around. The door they'd just come through had slammed shut.
Did that just close on its own?
Don't tell me we can't go back.
I don't know. Let's see.
Junpei grabbed hold of it with both hands and pulled with all his strength. And got the generic door not unlocking noise.
Damn it. It looks like it locks automatically.
Is there any other way out?
Well, there's another door over on the right. There's a card reader next to it. It's got a red light on it, though, so I'm pretty sure it's locked, too.
But there is a card reader, right?
Yeah.
Then perhaps if we find a key card, we could open the door and leave?
Well, yeah, that might work, but...
Hey! Wait a minute! Are you saying we're gonna have to search through this room for one little card?
Oh, man.
They took a second look at the room they'd found themselves in. It was filled with piles upon piles of all manner of things. The only word that could describe it was chaotic. It was like a tornado had passed through, followed by a giant who'd picked up and shaken the entire room a few times.
Looks that way.
Junpei's heart fell.
No way!
For real?
Clover and Seven looked as though they were about to cry.
Well, we can sit down and wait to die, if that's what you prefer. I rather doubt that, however, so it would be wise to start looking. We haven't much time. Let's find that key card. Oh, and the Neptune key as well. We won't be able to get through the hallway without it. All right then, let's begin.